Hello, we are at the last episode of Frankenstein. This is the 1818 edition, volume 3. Today we're going to look at chapter 3 as Three Quests End. So, again, to set up the context, we return in this particular chapter 7 as we close off the novel to the letters format. So we've basically been in a long journal, but now we return to letters, kind of. Robert starts talking to his sister directly again. So what's happened, of course, as we remember from the beginning of the novel, is the ship is stuck in ice, which is actually quite a frightening situation, especially in such a desolate area. And the crew is not happy with this, and they're hoping that if there's some break in the weather, if the ice will crack just a bit, that they'll be able to go home and turn around. So that's the context for what we're looking at here for the last few pages of the novel. But what I want us to concentrate on is two things. I want us to look at quests, the quest narratives that's taking place, and also finally the role of persuasion in the novel. So as we look at this, the three narrators of the novel is each on his own quest. Robert Walton, Victor Frankenstein, and the creature monster. We have Robert Walton on his particular quest, and what is he after? Robert Walton is on a quest for adventure, to explore new lands, to discover the Northeast Passage. If I said Northwest at some point, I apologize. The Northeast Passage, and to gain glory. Here's the Northeast Passage, which is from, of course, the perspective of Great Britain. Victor Frankenstein, he is also on a quest. The first part of the novel was that he was off to create life, right? He was, as a child, he was blown away by alchemy, and in particular the search for the elixir of life, the ability to maybe make people live forever or to find eternal youth, something like that, that would eventually lead him away from alchemy, magic, and so on, that would lead him to natural philosophy, chemistry, and science. And via science, he would create life. But the novel has taken a turn where Victor is no longer about creating life. He is about destroying life, about destroying one life in particular, and that is his creation's life. The creature's quest is to avenge himself on mankind. Mankind has treated him horribly. He wants to avenge himself on mankind and on one man in particular. And of course, that is his creator, Victor Frankenstein. So as we come to volume 3, chapter 7, all three narrators face the end of their quests. All three face their lives and their life choices. All experience regret. And it raises the question, I think, of who succeeds or fails at his quest. Robert Walton, Victor Frankenstein, or the creature monster. Robert Walton fails, right? He gets adventure, he gets to explore and all that, but he does not find the Northeast Passage. He doesn't make it to the North Pole, nothing like that. His crew is going to persuade him to turn around and go home short of their quest, and he's ashamed and he feels cowardly and so on, but he does it. He fails. Victor Frankenstein, 50-50. He manages to create life in the first part of the novel, but he absolutely fails at destroying the creature. He does not do that. At the end of the novel, Victor Frankenstein is dead, and the creature lives on. The creature monster, in all honesty, I think he succeeds. He manages in this cat and mouse game, he manages to torture Victor for all of Victor's life, basically, after a certain point at least. Victor was never going to live forever. He was eventually going to die, but the monster sure dragged out that process. There is no victory for Victor. The monster, I think I would argue, I definitely would argue he succeeds. You can differ with me on that if you want, but that's my point of view. I want to talk just kind of briefly about the importance of persuasion in this novel. And it's not only because I'm interested in persuasion, but I think that persuasion is very much at the heart of the novel. In part, it's not the dominant theme, I'm not saying that, but it's part of the novel for sure. In part, I think this stems from the fact that Mary Shelley's inspiration is from, or her imagination is inspired in part by Paradise Lost and John Milton's Satan, which is one of the most interesting characters in that poem, perhaps the most interesting in some ways, who's incredibly persuasive, right? I mean, the devil manages to persuade a third of the angels to rebel against God, and he manages to get Adam and Eve to really mess things up. And I think that helps understand here, especially here at the end of the novel, where both Victor and the creature are definitely persuasive, and both are trying to persuade. We might then raise the question of whose persuasion works and who is the most persuasive. But I just want to say this again. They are both persuasive. Victor Frankenstein says the creature is persuasive, and he warns Robert Walton about don't falling for his persuasion and so on. And the creature is, but so is Victor Frankenstein. Remember the scene here at the end where the crew wants to mutiny. They say we need to turn around. And Victor on his deathbed gives this very, I guess you could say, very masculine, heroic speech, to try to stir the men to go up, whatever you think of the speech. And remember, it's self-serving, okay? It really is, because he wants them to go up north so that he can continue to try to find this monster, even though he's about to die. So actually, I'm not really impressed with the speech, and I think the men made the right choice. They need to go home. This is crazy. The ice is opening up. Go home. And this guy trying to persuade them, he's crazy, people. I mean, he is just so filled with hatred and revenge. He will do absolutely anything and try to say anything to get people to go. So Victor Frankenstein is very much trying to persuade. And yet what happens, y'all, is he initially moves the crew, but the next day they set sail for south. So it doesn't work. The monster does make a case for himself. The monster and Victor have no final words here in the chapter because the monster shows up after Victor has died. The monster does make a case for himself to Robert Walton. He does confess, he does express regret, but the time for repentance is past. And yet, in terms of persuasion, at the end, the monster lives. Victor had told Robert Walton, don't fall for what he has to say. Stick a sword in his heart. But Robert Walton does not kill him. Now, the monster does say that he's going to go kill himself, that Robert Walton doesn't have to worry about this. He's going to leave. Mankind will never see him again because the monster is going to create some sort of funeral pyre. I don't know where he's going to get the wood, but he's, as other scholars have pointed out, and he's going to create some sort of funeral pyre. He's going to take his own life, and that's going to be the end of him. So that is what the monster says. He promises to kill himself and to burn his body up in a funeral pyre. And in fact, if you can look on the net, you'll see several people go along with what the monster says. Here's one study aid. It says Frankenstein dies, and the monster also goes off to die. Here's another study aid. Here at the end, it says, alone, the monster cries over Victor, goes to the Arctic, already in the Arctic, and dies. So the monster does promise to kill himself. That is true. But I think the question we should raise is, do you believe him? And should you believe him? It's an open question. You might say, yeah, I do believe him. Okay, that's fine. But I think we should at least explore the possibility that the creature doesn't either intend to keep that promise or keep that promise. It's an open question. Anyhow, regardless, the novel, I think, ends in a brilliant way. This meme is funny because it's got a little extra words, but I really do think the last two sentences of the novel are quite moving. It says, he sprang from the cabin window as he said this upon the ice raft which lay close to the vessel. And here's the last closing line. Here's the closing line. And I think it's really filled with emotion, and it captures the novel's tragedy. It says, he was soon borne away by the waves and lost in darkness and distance. That's it. Hope you all have enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure to read this with you and talk about it. Have a good one. Bye.